to myth 4. I think there's this big myth that you can't mix formula and breast milk together. So many parents kind of ask providers like, oh, is it okay for me to mix my breast milk with formula? What would be your advice to give to a healthcare provider on this practice?
Yes, 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 yes. You can absolutely mix breast milk and formula. And there's multiple ways that you can do that, really. So, you could directly mix your breast milk with prepared infant formula. So whether that's a ready to feed or, kind of combined together, or your prepared powder formula, you can combine those, in the same bottle. You could also alternate feeds. So you could do one feeding of breast milk, one feeding of formula, one feeding directly breastfeeding. It's a very fluid situation in reality, on how you can totally use both. And to me, actually, for myself, that prolonged my breastfeeding journey. So
Right.
yeah, that's a great thing to encourage, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just so healthcare providers can know the best recommendations, when you're mixing breast milk and formula together, does that change the storage time? I know you were talking about the storage for just regular formula,
Mhm.
but what happens when you mix them together? Does that change storage? Does that change safety? Kind of go through that.
Yeah, so a lot of times our fresh breast milk can actually be like out at the bedside, if you will, for up to 4 hours. If you remember, I was talking that formula can be out for 2. So that would be a difference in, that I would go with that 2, the 2 hours.
Okay.
So, kind of the same realm with refrigeration. If you mix them together ahead of time, which I probably wouldn't do anyways, I would only put them in the fridge for 24 hours. If you were to have just breast milk in the fridge, breast milk can actually be in the fridge for like 4, 5, 6 days. So, big difference, obviously.
Yeah.
And another really big difference with breast milk and formula in general is about freezing. So,
Mhm.
breast milk, of course, it freezes, we thaw, and it's very, very common practice, really. Formula, it's really not recommended to freeze. So, a lot of times when you do freeze formula, you'll see separation. The fat actually is what separates in it, and that can really mess up the nutritional content, the way, that distribution that we were kind of talking about. So that's another thing to consider for any of these. Once the feeding starts, do not put it back in the fridge.
Right.
Toss it. Um, yeah.
So you're kind of saying breast milk has a longer time outside of the refrigerator that it's okay with. You can keep it in the refrigerator for longer by itself, but once you mix it with formula, it kind of adopts the formula storage guidelines versus the longevity that breast milk alone would have. And then additionally, you don't want to freeze formula, so therefore you wouldn't want to freeze breast milk and formula combined. So that
Right.
kind of makes sense. It's a little bit simpler than it seems.
Yep.
But yeah, that definitely makes sense. So like I guess if you were mixing breast milk and formula together, it might be more beneficial to do it more at the time of the feed versus a long time in advance, just because that storage time goes down. So that makes sense.